In this video, it's my final thoughts on the PT Cruiser. How have I got on with it? Well, let's jump aboard and I'll tell you how I got on with it. I'm in a hurry, I need to get on my way. Firstly, I really like the styling. I really like the interior as well, actually. Even though it's a sea of black plastic, it's charming. I like the steering wheel. It's got a piratical feel to it, which is not a phrase you'll hear all that often. Those warning bongs are irritating. We've still got an issue where if you start the engine, which you must have the clutch down for, sometimes the oil pressure light stays on. But yeah, listen to that bong bong bong. I haven't got my seatbelt on, the ABS is up the Swanee. It's irritating as hell. It's just a particularly grating beeping noise, so I don't like cars that beep, and this one very much does. But I need to get on my way. We've got to drop this car off for its next adventure. Yes, I'm taking this car back to the West Midlands from whence it came effectively. I've just stalled it, that's great. Why are you telling me I've not got my seatbelt on? I've blatantly got my seatbelt on, you stupid car. Oh, shut up. See what I mean? It's just awful. But overall, this isn't a bad car. It's a bit peaky. There you go. Wait, 4,000 revs. Then things pick up. Below that, it's very flat. And the gear change is horrible. Really stiff and reluctant. I don't know if there's anything you can do about it. You might be able to replace bits. But that really is the key reason I've not driven this car as much as I thought. When I took the car on, this is effectively a collab with Car Mechanics magazine. The thinking was that I would use it as a bit of a daily driver and put some miles on it. But in truth, it's so unpleasant to drive that I've not done that. The steering lock is appalling. There are some hairpin bends near where I live. This car needs 2 goes to go around them. And you think that it's not a particularly long car. It should be doing better than that. But yeah, mostly it's just a horrible gear change. It absolutely destroys the driving experience. The ride also is quite jiggly, but you know, that doesn't make the PT Cruiser unique. A lot of modern cars have suspension that I find unpleasantly jiggly. It's just weird, the suspension. Sometimes it absorbs bumps really well, and sometimes it really doesn't. It just feels a little underdeveloped. And you know, it is worth remembering when these cars came out in America, they were a cheap car. That was the point of them, was they were meant to be a cheap, affordable car, a bit of a rival to the Koreans and Japanese, I think. So build quality levels aren't the best, although the Americans generally aren't brilliant at plastics. Very shiny dash top I don't like very much, but yeah, generally to sit in it's actually quite nice. Really nice, comfortable seats, nice driving position, nice and high up. And I just like how this car is a bit different, but yeah, it's proved an utter pig to work on. Most things in the engine bay seem entirely inaccessible, but we know we've given it a service, we've changed the tailgate struts, we've made some improvements. We just haven't carried out all the improvements we wanted to, the oil pressure switch being a key one of those. Bit weird, usually switches either work or they don't. This one seems to work sometimes. And the handling's okay, it's nothing to write home about, but I'll describe it as entirely acceptable. I've not had any issues with it doing something I don't expect it to do. It's just that compared to other cars on the fleet, there was nothing really calling me out to drive this one, so I very much didn't. Not helped by the fact the kids absolutely hate it. They think it's the worst car that has ever existed. Just think about the styling that really turns them off, and given how much they tend to embrace the general rubbish on my fleet, that's quite a telling statement. I don't quite understand it. I really like the styling. Am I that alone in thinking the PT Cruiser is a really nicely styled car? I mean, it's certainly not a bland Euro box, is it? And you know, as clever as a Vauxhall Zafira is, especially the second generation ones are really ordinary to look at. I actually quite like the styling of the first Zafiras. So yeah, I don't really get where all the hate comes from the PT Cruiser, but nor can I really say this has been a really enjoyable experience, because it hasn't. I'd rather drive anything else, it would seem. Here we are then, pretty little Aberairon. If you want to know more about Aberairon, go and check out Miss HubNut's channel, because we came and had delicious ice cream. We Saturnated in that very park, having bought it from the shop, which is Angelato, which is right behind the camera, but you cannot see at the moment. So yeah, Aberraron, well worth a visit. And there's really not a lot else to say about the PT Cruiser. It's accomplished. It's pretty decent in most areas. I would say it excels in no area at all. But yeah, I can see why people like them. There are plenty of cars that have plenty of foibles that people love, and I think the PT Cruiser is definitely going to be one of those. Far too many people sticking all sorts of nasty plastic tat on them, of course. But wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. And there it goes. This one does make a strange sort of tensiony belt noise, but nonetheless it goes reasonably well for a 2 litre. It's not the most powerful 2 litre out there, but gives a reasonable account for it. It is thirsty, it does seem to drain the fuel tank quite quickly. But yeah, there we go, PT Cruiser. I'd hoped for a bit more really, and yeah, it's quite telling that it really has just sat around for several weeks. So yeah, we'll say goodbye. I'm off to collect my Daewoo and drive home in that. Be interesting to see how that feels after doing about 110 miles in a PT Cruiser. Actually, I need to stop sugarcoating this. I've just driven this car up one of my favourite roads in Wales, the A4120 from Aberystwyth to Devil's Bridge, and this car made that road not fun. And I can't really say that about an awful lot of cars. I've driven many different vehicles up and down that road. I don't think any of them has conspired to make that road feel an absolute bind, and this car does. It's that reluctant gear change, and the fact you sit a bit higher up means the cornering, while it handles well, you're experiencing more G-force, or you feel like it, because you sit that bit higher up. And the engine, you're having to fight this horrible gearbox to try and keep the engine at the peak of its power, and it's not like the engine sounds good when you're keeping it up on the revs. The contrast to the Nissan Primera P11 could not be more marked. I think the PT Cruiser does offer a fair degree more comfort than that. The Primera P11 is one of the most uncomfortable cars I've ever owned, but it's just disappointing. And what disappoints me most is this is HubNut. We are the champions of the underdog, but even I am thinking, no, I don't like this. It's horrible to work on. The interior plastics are so grim. I'd forgotten how nasty the column stalks are. So, you know, a car is kind of judged by the things you access most. And the indicator stalk and the gear lever, especially in a manual car, are two of the things you're going to be touching all of the time. They're both absolutely horrible. It's also the only car I've had where the interior light is controlled by the same rotating switch on the stalk that controls the brightness of the dials. I say brightness, like the neon, it's light blue indications rather, on a white background. And most of the time that conspires to be almost entirely invisible, so that's not great at all. So I'm gonna have to call it. The PT Cruiser is a car I really wanted to like, but I absolutely don't. When I get out of this car today, I will be glad. That's not an ordinary HubNut conclusion, but there we are. I can entirely understand why people like these cars. Looks are very subjective, and people will forgive a myriad of faults for just because a car looks good. Nissan Figaro is a key example here. A car with almost zero driving dynamics at all, but people love them, and that's fair enough. After all, I like 2CVs, and I like 2CVs more than Diane's, and there's only one reason for that, and that's the looks. Diane is a much better car in so many ways, but it'll never be a 2CV, if you see what I mean. So there we go. Austin Metro, arguably a better car than a Mini, but most people would prefer a Mini. We are strange creatures, us human beings. We judge things for all the wrong reasons. But yeah, there we go. Chrysler PT Cruiser. So bad even HubNut hates it. Oh dear. Oh dear indeed. I shall say thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a future video. Farewell.